Hi everyone, I am here with you today to talk about the art of pausing. So I would like to start today by reading a quote from Pema Chodron. It's from her book, Living Beautifully, and Pema Chodron is a Buddhist nun. So she writes, "We have a choice. We can spend our whole life suffering because we can't relax with how things really are. Or we can relax and embrace the open-endedness of the human situation, which is fresh, unfixated, unbiased." I really love this quote because, first of all, it speaks to the groundlessness of what it means to be human. If these last few months have shown us anything, it's that the idea of predictability and certainty is exactly that, just an idea. And sometimes we have this semblance of certainty, the semblance of predictability, but really it's just an illusion. And it doesn't take that much to send that illusion shattering to the ground. And in those moments, it's really natural to feel uncomfortable. And we often find ourselves grasping. We try to stay busy, we plan, we worry. We consume ourselves in these ways that don't really have any actual product as a result, but rather keep our brains spinning on that hamster wheel. And they give us this, again, illusion of doing something, when really all we're doing is denying the uncertainty that we are surrounded by at all moments. And when we find ourselves engaged in that busyness, what we are also doing is taking away our own agency. So we're letting ourselves just spin from one thing to the next thing to the next thing without a lot of pause, without a lot of intention that could otherwise be there. And it's important to note that in each moment we do have agency. It doesn't matter the set of rules, the societal norms, the bureaucracies that we might find ourselves within. Even if our decision is equivalent to different shades of the same color, there still is some level of agency there, some level of choice. And when we recognize that, we allow ourselves to open to this possibility of choosing and thereby living in a way that feels aligned with our true selves, like who we are on the inside, what we care about, what we value, all of those things. And sometimes these choices come really easy to us in a moment. It's not necessarily the easiest, but it's the most natural decision for us to make, the decision that finds itself being made before we've maybe even thought about it. These are our default decisions, and this is what we call our personality. And as soon as we accept that our personality is exactly that, just a set of conditioned responses, then we accept the opportunity to change. So in order to change the personality, we must first create a habit of pausing. Then we can start choosing differently. Until we learn to pause, we'll simply refer to our default system of response, and that will just kind of propel us through our lives. But sometimes when we most need to pause is when it's most challenging. You know, maybe there's a child screaming in the back of the car. Maybe you're on the phone with an angry parent. Maybe you're just caught in the middle of this chaotic moment in your day. And so to pause in those moments can be very challenging. We kind of let these default systems take over in those moments. And in order to find a way to pause in those moments, we must first start by pausing in easier moments. And if we do that enough, it'll become accessible in those more challenging times when we really, really need it. So let's start by just covering what it means to pause, like what that actually might look like. In a moment of pause, we can check in with ourselves by asking 4 simple questions. How do I feel? Where do I feel it? Maybe it's manifesting in my stomach or in my shoulders. What is the easiest response here? What is my inclination? And what is the most aligned response? So what response feels like it would benefit me and who I'm interacting with, and would feel like the most ideal option? And we can start by pausing in really easy ways. So maybe it's between subjects while your class is shifting around, and you can take a moment to stop, and your eyes can be open, you can be standing. You can simply ask yourself, how do I feel? Where do I feel it? What is my next action going to be if I just let myself move into it very naturally, very easily? And what would my next action be if I really acted in the most ideal way, the most aligned way? Another way that you can do this pause is, especially on a weekend, maybe when you have a little less structure throughout your day, is to set a timer. Maybe you set it for 20 or 30 minutes. And every time the timer goes off, check in. How do I feel? Where do I feel it? What is my next step if I allow myself to simply move forward how I was thinking I would? And what is my next step in the most ideal world? Okay. If you're responding to emails, every fourth email, pause. How do I feel? Where do I feel it? What's the easiest response? What's the most aligned response? All right, so through this simple practice, you can find yourself more naturally pausing. You might notice, for example, when the child's screaming in the car, that you gain the ability to pause. You say, okay, how would I respond if I just let myself naturally move forward without much thought? And how would I most ideally respond? What would be the most aligned decision to make here? Ultimately, we want to create a pattern through these simpler moments so that it becomes easier and more accessible during those moments of duress, during those moments where it feels much harder to consciously slow the mind. And through this art of pausing, we find empowerment. We find a way to build a life moment by moment that truly reflects our beliefs, our values, and those inner truths that we hold so dearly. So with this in mind, I'm going to introduce you to a short mindfulness practice that I think really goes hand in hand with this art of pausing. So wherever you are, if you're standing, maybe take a seat. If you're seated, then you can go ahead and close your eyes or gaze downward. Hands can rest palm face down on the thighs. It can be nice to maybe slide the palms back to release the shoulders onto the back. Let's collectively take a deep breath in and exhale through the mouth. Let the jaw slacken and let the eyelids be soft. Bring to mind an image of your future self. Picture this person as though things went well for them. It's someone that you admire, that you hope to become, that you would be proud of becoming. Imagine a faint glow around them and an ease in their movements, in their actions. And it can help to picture them doing something specific. Again, something that you would respect. Maybe you see them playing with your dog, hiking through the woods. Notice how you feel in their presence. Notice how you would describe this person to someone else. Notice that if you have the ability to picture this person in your mind, you have the ability to be that person, to show up as them in any given moment. Take one more moment just observing this person. Noticing their most prominent characteristics, the things you admire most about them. And as you work toward opening the eyes, maybe gently at first, keeping the gaze downward, I encourage you to consider taking this practice into those moments of pause. Allow yourself, as you have an opportunity to make a choice, to ask, how would my future self show up in this moment? What decision would that person make? How would they make it? What would their attitude be? What words would they say? What actions would they take? And then say those words and take those actions. Right? This can be one of the easiest ways for us to tap into our most inner beliefs and values, is to picture that future idealistic version of ourselves and then simply choose to show up as that person. And it's not always easy, and at the start it might feel like you're an imposter, that you're just doing this action that doesn't feel as natural, that doesn't come as easily. But that's the start of any habit, right? At the start of any habit, it's going to feel a little uncomfortable. And as you progress through it, as you do it more and more and more, it becomes more comfortable. And eventually it becomes your default. And when you have that moment of your personality, your conditioned responses, matching up with your core values, your beliefs, that's where you are most powerful as a human. That's where suddenly every little thing that you do throughout your day lends itself to building a meaningful life for yourself and those around you. So I hope this can be a helpful practice to you, remembering to pause throughout your day and to show up as your future self. Your homework from this video is going to be to pause at least 3 times throughout every day. So if you have to set a timer for it, if you have to schedule it into your planner, set aside a moment to pause, to ask yourself, how do I feel? Where do I feel it? What would my next step in this moment be if I just was on default? And what would it be if I were choosing very intentionally? And how might my future self show up in this moment? All right, thank you all, and I hope you enjoy this practice.